Kim Dent, who is the director of the Ohio Commission on Fatherhood, Clarence Jones, who's the vice chair of the Minnesota Fathers and Families Network, Tammy Dunrud, who is the manager of the Minnesota Fathers and Families Network, Kiana Cryer Coupe, who is assistant professor in the Department of Social Work for North Carolina State, Ken Perry, who's the vice president of operations at Methodist Home for Children in Raleigh, North Carolina, and co-chair of the North Carolina Fatherhood Development Advisory Council, and Anna Lipton Galbraith, who's the program service director for the Child and Family Research Partnership in Austin, Texas. So, to start us off, I've asked Steve and Clarence to each talk about fatherhood practitioner networks in their respective states. I'm going to ask Steve to head it off and really just get us conversant with what they are, why they're useful, how they work, and sort of the Ohio experience. Then Clarence will do the same for Minnesota. So, Steve, thank you.
All right, thank you, Jessica, for the introduction and for the invitation to participate today. I have been involved in a lot of different things in fatherhood over the years, and I've always felt that being part of the practitioner network in Ohio is the most meaningful. We have, just to give you a little bit of history, we formed in 2003, and out of our current board members, we have 13. 8 of those were original board members, which also kind of gives a testimony to how meaningful that work is to them, because each of them has full-time jobs and their work with the network is volunteer. Just a little context about what was going on in Ohio when we were formed and why we felt it was important to form the network. We started our planning council in 2003. A handful of us that are founding board members happened to be at a national fatherhood conference that year. The Ohio Commission on Fatherhood had originally been formed in 1998, but it lost its funding, and it was formed as a bipartisan commission, but it lost its funding in kind of a partisan budget battle in 2001. So we felt, as practitioners, kind of leaderless in the state. And we also felt, and I've come to think of this as that fatherhood practitioners are often isolated gems throughout the state, since we're not connected, or through the nation really, since we're not connected to any funding source that is universal. So quite often they feel isolated in their work and need collegiality and sharing of information. So serving those practitioners was really one of our first main goals. We wanted to connect as many of them as we could across the state of Ohio, inform them with best practices, create opportunities for them to share their common struggles and common successes, and support them in their work. So practitioners started out and have always been our primary stakeholder. The other thing that we were really focused on was advocacy. We shared a struggle, as all fatherhood practitioners did at that time, and some still do, with public policies that are not father-friendly or not father-inclusive. 2003 was a time when low-income fathers who were struggling to pay child support were still widely looked at as deadbeat dads, not dead broke dads. And we had a shared vision of policies we wanted to advocate for, but no really way to do that. So a second purpose for us to convene was to mobilize practitioners across the state, so we would have a common voice to try to advocate for father-friendly public policy. And then a third one, which is still, all of these have continued today, is that I believe, and I think we all believe that fatherhood work is social change work, since it still is not part of general social welfare policy. And social change work, I'm kind of a social change junkie. I really believe that it takes a focus inside organized systems as well as outside those systems in the community. And both have to be operating together and at the same time to achieve social change. So we had a situation where we had, the House Commission on Fatherhood for a certain number of years, but no community voice to support it. So it had died, and so we thought, well, we're going to create that strong community network voice in the community to demonstrate the support for fatherhood work, and then hopefully reconvene or resurrect, or we've used a number of terms, but bring the Ohio Commission on Fatherhood back to life. And we were able to do that. And I think that's my 4 minutes. So I'll pause there and pass it on to my friend Clarence Jones.
Okay, we'll get back to you, Steve. Clarence.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm like Steve. I am so appreciative of the opportunity to be talking with others who are involved in this, what I think is some of the most important work in the world, which is around parenting and fatherhood. And I would also like to start off with our history. In the 1990s, Minnesota was considered the epicenter of fatherhood. And the reason for that was because there were so many programs that were here that were dealing with the families, and they were trying to include fathers in the process. I mean, so you had things like PICA Head Start, you had Goodwill Easter Seal, you had a variety of different programs that were seeking to do that. And you also had the Fathers Center, which was started by a guy that many of you know, Neil Tift. And when I became involved in the fatherhood program, probably in 1990, 94, 95, there were probably 30 or 40 different programs that were around in some kind of way trying to work with fathers. Um, we became involved with the National Practitioners Network for Fathers and Families, which was again an effort on a national level to engage fathers. And as a result of the work that we did with them, it became apparent that we needed to look at a different way of doing fatherhood and working together. What had originally been a rather informal system, we thought that we needed to become more formal. And so part of the work that we did was that with the help of the National Practitioner Network for Fathers and Families, we did a series of focus groups around the state of Minnesota. We found a foundation that had sites in the entire state, like 7 or 8 different regions, and we came alongside of them because they also had an interest in fatherhood. And we went into all of those counties, and we talked to practitioners, we talked to officials, we talked to parents about the possibility of having a network of fatherhood. What we know, and what our intent was from the very beginning, was that we did not want to do programs. But the Minnesota Fathers and Families Network really is designed to support practitioners and agencies that work with fathers and families. So we were not trying to create more programs. So we were not competitors for them, and so that was a minimizing of the tension that came when we started talking about working together. The other part for us was that Minnesota was also very Steve kind of, I think he kind of alluded to this. We had a lot of issues with fathers' rights in Minnesota. We had some very, very strong organizations that were really fighting for the fathers and the families, and so we had to navigate that in a state that was very quote unquote liberal. And so we had to figure out how in the world can we operate with them. And so part of the work that we had in terms of starting our network was we had to understand the social climate in the area in which we were at. And part of ours was that we had a very activist state, and we had very strong opinions about this whole issue around fatherhood and ways in which we should work together. We also had this kind of love-hate relationship with child support. And so there was a variety of different things that when we started our network, we had to take into consideration. But we also realized that we also needed those people at the table with us, and we were going to have something that was going to be sustainable. And so we spent a lot of our time in the first portion of our work after we did the focus groups. We found out from various parts of the state what people wanted. We started to develop relationships. Now, what was interesting about our work was that, beyond a shadow of a doubt, almost every county that we went to, every focus group that we went into, they were saying the same things. And so it was really an interesting time for us because we thought we were going to get like 5,000 different things, but it was the people of the community. They really wanted to see positive fatherhood, positive engagement, and they also wanted to be able to work through the challenges that men were having with child support. So we started our network. We brought those various segments together. We started talking about different things. And interesting enough, child support in Minnesota was very supportive of this effort. And I think it was in 2001 that we actually had a statewide child support conference around fatherhood, and we probably had close to 400 people that showed up, which was very, very wonderful. At the same time, it was tension filled because a lot of things had not been established in terms of how we were going to work with them. So anyway, so we have, as a network, have been very sensitive to watching the environmental climate in which we are operating. We are sensitive to the various needs. We're listening to people. The other nice thing about the network has been the fact that we had a lot of people from that were involved in fatherhood that were also from the academic world. And so a lot of the work that we have done, if you go on our website, you can see that we have publications, we have information sheets, we have books, and Tammy's going to talk a lot about the summits.
Okay.
But we
Okay.
are.
Great. Then, yeah, and we want to make some of those resources available, Jay, on the next, and Steve will be talking, we have a list of resources that Steve is going to be talking about. Could we go to the next slide, Jay? Yeah. Steve, can you tell us a little bit more specifically about how you can establish a practitioner network, how you did? And I think we also have a list, we have some of the resources that are available, that you've made available to the Ohio, on the Ohio network for others to reference.
Sure, Jessica, I'd be happy to cover that. If you go to the next slide, Jay, there's a list of those resources, and then we can go back to these questions. We were lucky, as Clarence referenced, that at the time we were forming, the National Practitioners Network for Fathers and Families was active. They were funded by the Ford Foundation and were really helping move this movement of fatherhood networks forward, and then unfortunately lost their funding. And I think that's one of the pieces of momentum we need to achieve back. So when we formed our planning council in 2003, we asked John Smith from NPNFF to be our facilitator. And so what I have listed here is some of the documents that John shared with us as we went through our planning council, along with a strategic planning process that John led us through, the public policy agenda that we actually wrote years later, once the Ohio Commission on Fatherhood was about ready to reconvene to establish our statewide policy agenda. And then some documents related to how you all want to think about structuring your network. We started out as a loose committee, a board, and then brought in memberships. We had a fiscal agent, which was a nonprofit agency that was connected to us. And then when we felt like we were ready we went through our own process of becoming a separate corporation, nonprofit corporation, and a 501c3 status with the IRS. I put these out there because we were so, our formation was helped so much by NPNFF, and I would love to share these things with you to help you get started quicker. There's too much to go through here in detail, but please reach out to me individually. My email is there, and I'd be happy to go through any of these steps and share these documents with anyone on the call.
Great, thank you. Let's go back for other experiences on how to start it. I think Clarence may have stepped away for a moment, but maybe Kiana, are you on this? I don't see Kiana, but Jay, can you maybe, in North Carolina is exploring possibility of starting a network, I think, and there may be some opportunity to collaborate with United Way. This is putting you on the spot a little bit, Carla, but is there, would you care to say anything about the collaboration with United Way? Can
you hear me?
Yeah, you're unmuted, Carla. And I know this is totally unprompted, or unexpected, but I'm wondering if there is, so if you have any insight about how to coordinate with United Way on this.
So, I'm glad you can hear me because I didn't know my computer would let me talk. That's why I was asking for a calling number. But I see Kiana waving her hand saying,
we don't hear you.
You can't hear me?
No, not very well.
Well, I didn't hear me at all. I didn't even know my computer had.
Okay. I think this is. Let's go back to Steve for now. Steve, is there, I mean, when you establish a network, did you create a website? Did you create a statewide, a resource directory? How concretely, what are sort of the nuts and bolts of what you need to do it?
Sure, I'd be happy to go through that quickly, Jessica. We've tried some things that have worked and some things that have not, but similar to Clarence, we had a statewide conference about the time that we decided to start our planning council. The conference was sponsored by an agency in the state that had a lot of funding at that time. So we tacked on a invitation to practitioners to a dinner at the beginning of that conference, just to openly discuss, have a town hall about whether a practitioners network would be helpful. We had wide, almost unanimous support for the idea, and we're able to get about 75 folks in the room to commit at that point, which helped our planning council move forward. And then it was a matter of networking through relationships. One person in one county might know another. So we gathered emails as quickly as we could to keep people informed. Then, as you mentioned, we started our website, which has been helpful, which gave us a public presence. Through the website, we would publish email newsletters that we encourage people to share. And then we also collected information about fatherhood programs throughout the state. So there would be one place to go for a database of fatherhood programs. And you'll see that if you go to our site, how we set that up. The other thing, though, that was really important to us is that Ohio is a really diverse state, politically and racially. So it was really important that we have representation from the whole state. So in the beginning, we created 5 regions of the state and made sure our board was representative of each region of the state. And then we partnered with organizations to have local, what we called Advanced Fatherhood Ohio Policy Summits. So we would go to local regions to inform practitioners about fatherhood issues, programming issues, policy issues, and then recruit members that way. So we're up to about 1,000 members now. We kind of stay even at that level, but it's taken some time to get there. I will say, as an all-volunteer board, it's hard for us to manage that membership and keep all that information corrected all the times. But
is there a membership fee that you charge?
So we initially planned to charge a membership fee for individual practitioners and agencies, but we found that it was a barrier for some that were, really struggling, small grassroots folks, and that just seemed to be the wrong way for us to treat practitioners at that point. So we decided we're going to commit to free membership. And that's worked really well. We built up our numbers much quicker, and which also helped the advocacy that we were doing, so that we could speak with a larger voice. But we still have always struggled with how to have any sort of consistent revenue, which membership would have brought us.
Okay. Is there anything more about the Minnesota Practitioners Network that any differences or any kind of establishment or structural factors that we should know about? Again, I don't know if Clarence is right there, but Tammy, can you speak to that?
Hi, Jessica. Yes, Clarence has stepped out. Is it echoing on your side?
Yeah, it is a little bit.
Okay. Let me turn that volume down.
Oh. Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah. We got this bad echo. I'm so sorry.
Let me try this computer, maybe. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Steve did a very good job of talking about the network, and Minnesota is very similar kind of a network. We do not have a membership fee. We do ask for donations throughout the year. So when the Give to the Max Day comes, we work with our partners to help with that. We do work on grant processes and that kind of thing. But yes, it is a challenge to find sustainability funding.
Okay. Is it staffed on a volunteer basis as well?
I am the only, I don't know if you'd call me staff, but I'm the only paid employee. The rest of the board and so on are all volunteer.
Okay. And okay. I don't know. I think I saw that there's a message that Kiana is available to from North Carolina to talk about a little bit about their process of just starting to establish a network. I think she might be still with Carla on a line. I don't know. Say it again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Not sure why you all couldn't hear me before.
Yeah.
Thank you all. And just wanted to start out to say that we're really grateful for the funding from FRPN in terms of being able to connect systems. So part of the work that we're trying to do, there is a North Carolina Fatherhood Development Advisory Council that has been around since 2000 in North Carolina. And so that is the formal practitioners network. Within the last few years, the organization, in terms of actually moving forward, there have been some issues with that because, again, these are also a group of individuals that are all volunteers. So these are practitioners that are employed full-time in various spaces across the state. So part of the work that we're trying to do now is to compile a list of practitioners across the state, as well as agencies and programs that they're working in, to make this information available statewide, to think about the best way to kind of revive this network. And so kind of having this partnership with Carla has been helpful because she sits in a space where she attends directors meetings at the state level every week. And so during one of those meetings about a month or so ago, it was shared out that North Carolina received a grant from the Foundation for Health Leadership and Innovation. And so the state is working in collaboration with United Way 211, Unite Us, and Expound Decision Systems to develop a portal, which is called NC Cares 360. So if you were to Google NC Cares 360, you can go on and kind of see what the platform is going to look like. We have 100 counties in North Carolina, and the platform has gone live in a few pilot counties to date and should be live to the entire state by fall of 2020. And so this is really a coordinated statewide care network, particularly looking at non-medical drivers of health. And so as we think about some of the issues that fathers are facing in terms of connections for employment, connections for access to healthcare, connections for education information, particularly thinking about fathers who will be returning to the community post-incarceration. This will be a hub that any individual in North Carolina could visit, but with our partnership, we would like to work to be able to deposit the information that we have that will be helpful specifically for fathers in our state and practitioners. And so excuse me if I keep looking down, I want to make sure that I'm reading this information correctly. But what will be in this network, there will be a directory of services that are available and a call center. So fathers or practitioners will be able to call into this number, similar to what you do for 211 through the United Way right now, to kind of identify what your need is and be connected to a service in their county. They also have a data team who will be verifying these resources. So as we think about the practitioners network that's already been in existence in the state, sometimes there's issues making sure that the information that we're giving out in terms of referral sources, that it's up to date and it's accurate. And so the benefit of having this partnership with United Way is that they have the funds to make sure that the data is verified. There's also a data repository where folks such as our team can say, you know, these are resources that are available that may not be broadly known. And then there will also be a private portal for healthcare providers and human service practitioners to share referral information, and then also do follow-up to make sure that the father or whomever was actually linked to the resource. And there'll be some data collected in terms of some of the outcomes of that referral linkage. And so that's pretty much where that is, and we look forward to having continued meetings between our FRPN team, so myself and Carla, and some of the other folks that are working with us at Child Welfare to let you know where we are in terms of depositing information for fathers and making that a resource that's available for our practitioners.
So is it fair to say, had you not really approached them, this resource, NC Cares 360 would not have had fatherhood information and fatherhood resources and services highlighted and punched out this way?
Right, so looking at their initial plan, targeting it down in terms of fathers specific is not a part of that initial plan. So I think that this will be a nice added.
Yeah, well, that's exciting. I'm glad that you could, piggybacking on that is an interesting way to go. Is anybody, I think we want to open this up to any member of the panel now. Let's move on to slide-wise to talk about some of the benefits. Jay, keep going to this one, about why really other states should bother with them, how practitioner networks are helpful, and why they make sense. Is there anybody else on the panel that wants to add anything that hasn't been highlighted so far?
Jessica, this is Tammy Unruh at Minnesota.
Yeah.
And one of our very popular fatherhood resources is called the Daddy Book. And we have now reprinted that 3 times in 3 years. Public health nurses hand them out to new fathers. Head Start uses them with fathers. And so it's a very good resource to hand to fathers, as we find there aren't that many resources designed just specifically for a new dad. And so we have a lot of requests for that particular book, which was pretty much written by Dr. Glenn Palm here in Minnesota.
It was written by the network. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Hmm?
All right.
I would say if you have resources like that and get the word out there, people are looking for that.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything to this?
Hey, Jessica, it's Kim. Hi.
Hi.
So, in Ohio from the Commission on Fatherhood. So first of all, you already know how I feel about the Ohio Practitioners Network for Fathers and Family, and Steve and all of the membership on there, because there's a lot here at the Commission on Fatherhood as a state agency and me as a state worker that I would not be able to get done without the Practitioners Network. So Steve really didn't go into a lot of detail regarding how he connects with the state, at this point. So we are under contract with OPNFF from the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services Commission on Fatherhood to do a lot of the boots on the ground legwork for us. They provide coaches for our mobilization project. So again, for those of you on the webinar that don't know, that we fund programs. We also fund local counties to mobilize fatherhood in their respective counties. And then also we collect data. And so OPNFF plays a large role under contract with the state to get some of that work done. And when we go into summits, I'll talk a little bit more about what they do with us there. But other than summits, there are other great connections that a state, if they were going to form a state commission under one of the programs at the state level, that can really, benefit from working with a practitioners network. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Okay. Any questions? Anybody on the call from another state that hasn't spoken, that has a question to ask? You can type it in, or you can ask. You can ask to be unmuted. Any questions?
Jessica, this is Steve.
Yeah.
I just want to echo something that Kim just said, which references back to the beginning about the value of the public-private partnership.
Yeah.
Kim is able to do things, and we're able to do things. When it comes to advocacy as a state employee, Kim's not able to advocate as much as she'd like. But we are able to, give testimony at the legislature and meet with legislators and talk about things. So we share so many common goals when it comes to public policy, but we are approaching them in different ways. And we coordinate with each other, of course, as is appropriate. And we've had a number of public policy successes in terms of father inclusive policy since we started. And I think, that partnership we share with public institutions has just been really critical.
What's an example, Steve? What kind of public policy issue have practitioners and the network really weighed in on?
So a number of things initially related to fathers involved with correctional systems. Once Governor Kasich took office, he had a particular interest in correctional policies. So we were able to work with ODRC and the legislature on, not incarcerating men for felony non-support. We've been working for years. Another thing I would say is that when you have a statewide network, you have an organization that can get a seat on a number of statewide commissions. So I have been a member of the statewide Child Support Guidelines Council for years.
Mm-hmm.
I was a member of the Ohio Commission on Fatherhood Board. We have kind of 2 informal seats there. So that kind of formalizes that. But we started working on child support reform in Ohio with your colleague Jane Venor probably 15 years ago.
Right.
And finally, this past year, we passed a child support reform bill that has a self-sufficiency reserve.
My gosh.
And the value of our, 1,000 voices through that time has been really valuable, and working with our friends like Kim in OCF and Child Support Office and that kind of thing. So having those 2 bodies working together is just really, really helpful.
Great.
This is Clarence. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to echo what Steve said. We have been working with child support here in the state of Minnesota as well. And it was important that we were included in the process, because we felt it was unfair for all the work to be on males. And so there were laws that were changed to look at both parents' wages in terms of assigning child support. So we have been doing things like that as well here.
Okay. Again, questions? Anybody want to ask anything of the panel member? Okay, let's go to, you'll have a chance if something occurs to you to jump in again later on. Let's go to the next slide and talk about fatherhood summits. We're going to hear about four people talk a little bit about their summits for different states, covering some of these ABCs, who they target, how they plan for it, and they deal really with the basics. And let's start from someone we haven't heard from. Let's start with the state of Texas, Anna, and is Anna there? I thought she was on earlier. Okay, let's start.
Are you able to hear me?
Now I can. Oh my God, we have some big construction going on outside. I don't know, Jay, is my background noise terrible?
No.
Okay. All right, Anna, talk about the Texas Fatherhood Summits and
Absolutely. So thank you all for having me here today. I'm glad to have the opportunity to share our experience. I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of what our model looks like. We are currently in our 4th year of organizing Fatherhood Summits in collaboration with the Prevention and Early Intervention Division, which is within our Department of Family Protective Services. And our Fatherhood Summits really originated from PEI, the Prevention and Early Intervention Division, having a vested interest in creating better collaboration across the state. As a research organization, our role and sort of the way that we approach our summits is to create a forum where we are bringing the research and the evidence to practitioners. From year to year, we have sort of shifted the lens of the summits. So in the past years, we've focused on what is the research and the evidence around why fathers matter, what do we know about what works. We've had a strong focus on networking in communities and how communities can work together to create systems level change, bringing in outside speakers to talk about those approaches and best practices. And this year, in our 4th year, we're doing something unique, which is we're doing 4 regional summits rather than 1 statewide summit. And the advantage of the regional summits is we're going to have an opportunity in 4 communities in Texas to bring together all the local partners who probably wouldn't have been able to travel in the past to Austin for our statewide summit, and dig deep at that community level about what's unique to that community and really give them an opportunity to learn and work together. So we're really excited about this new regional approach. The lessons that we've learned from our previous summits, I think, lend itself well to this regional collaboration idea. And we are in a very big state. So I think that that's another reason that this regional approach will be advantageous for us. In terms of the structure of our summits, so I should have mentioned this at the beginning, our audience is practitioners, and we have sort of, because of the focus on building connections and creating community change, we have targeted city officials, mayors, county judges, and then local service providers. That's sort of who we want to get to our summit. In terms of our goals, I mentioned we want to inform all of the stakeholders about the research and the evidence and give them sort of the tools to think about how they can advance their practice and better network. And then really engage them during the summit to think about how they can take that evidence and put it into action. We shift the lens a little bit each year to try to re-engage the same people and build upon what we've done in previous years. Our typical structure is that we have one keynote who can speak to sort of larger themes and sort of motivate the discussion for the day. As an example, last year we had Paul Schmitz come and talk about community level change, and that really set the foundation for a lot of thinking and planning among the participants. And then we couple the keynote with a series of panels. We find that the panels give an opportunity for diverse perspectives. There's an opportunity for people to disagree, and that promotes real conversation about what works in people's experiences. And then a lot of audience engagement and time for collaborative work is another element that we truly try to infuse into our summits. And I spoke a little bit already about the community approach. As I said, I think this will really allow us to do some deeper engagement and planning, and we're hoping that in the 4 regions where we go, it will really let the community partners there advance the work that they've been doing. So I will stop there, and then I'm happy to answer questions after everybody else speaks.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's skip up. Let's go out up north and to hear a little bit about Minnesota.
Jessica, there is a question.
Oh, okay.
So let me see here. So the question is, for those states that have regional networks, how do you organize the regions? Is there a main coordinator at the state level, or are there key leads in each region? Please describe.
Yeah, maybe Anna just answer that. Well,
sure. So I assume this is in terms of organizing our regional summits, and the approach that we've taken is we've worked with our key state partners. So that includes prevention and early intervention. Our Office of Attorney General Child Support Division has been critical. Our Workforce Commission. We also are involving the Texas Council on Family Violence as another speaker. And they have helped us identify relevant local partners who can more specifically speak to the local context. And help us. We also, through prevention and early intervention, they're funding a lot of the program providers. And so that's been the main way that we've recruited the right audience for the summits.
okay. All right. Tammy, tell us about your summits.
Yes, thank you. Our summit, we just finished our 16th annual summit in February. And I thought I would just share some of the comments from the evaluation. And these are comments we get to hear every year. People say, this is the only professional development opportunity I do during the whole year. This is the one I choose. I don't know what I would do without this network of professionals in my work with fatherhood. And so many thank yous, because they don't know where else to go for resources and information in their work with fathers. So the summit in Minnesota is really targeted to family professionals. And that would include healthcare, mental health, social service, education. We do reach out to policymakers and child advocates as well. We have done seminars in the past throughout the region of Minnesota, but people just seem like they want to come together as one large group. And we hold it in February, usually every year for a day and a half. So the first day is really our day to focus on the keynote, kind of set the stage. And then the second day is really kind of application. How do we take this information and apply it in our own work settings? And we typically do that through breakout sessions. The planning for the summit in Minnesota is usually done by two people from the MFFN board. And then they work with a committee of usually around 5 people to plan that a year in advance. And the people on the committee don't necessarily have to be from the board. We really encourage them, if you had a good summit experience, would you like to help us next year? Just to draw on that passion that they have about working with fatherhood. And it is a statewide conference, so we do hold it in a central location in Minnesota with an event center because it is an overnight, so it does have hotel accommodations as well. And I wanted to touch a bit on sponsorships because they are really key to the MFN Summit here in Minnesota, not only because they provide the financial support, but they also really give credibility and promotional support to the summit. They take the information that we put together and really share it on their listserv, so the advertising really goes to a much larger audience than we could do. And then they're really interested in providing scholarships. So lots of times people would like to come to the summit, but they may need financial assistance to cover the cost of the registration fee. And those sponsorships help us to do that. Along with our exhibitors we have at the summit, we provide a lot of additional information and resources through exhibitors, and the exhibitors do pay a fee that provides a table and food for them. And then the other thing that seems to draw people to the summit is we offer CEUs, our clock hours. So if you're an educator, you're looking for clock hours, we provide CEUs from the Board of Social Work and the Board of Behavioral Health and Therapy, so that they can come in a day and a half and get a lot of hours for their professional development. And that seems like it's a draw as well. I just want to touch a bit on our keynote speakers. We always pick someone who has a passion for fatherhood, but maybe they fit into our topic as well. So for example, this past February, it was on substance abuse. And so we had the State Department come and talk about the trends in Minnesota of substance abuse, particularly relating to fatherhood and how that affects the family. But we also have had mental health and how it affects fathers and families, diverse family systems and how fathers affect that. So the keynote is really sort of the basis for the summit on the first day. But we do have many breakouts as well to really bring more of that resource and information to it. But I have to say, we usually end with some kind of a panel of fathers relating to the topic, and that is by far and away the favorite part that people tell us on the evaluation form, that really kind of brings it full circle and comes home to why we do this important work that we do. And I do really encourage people to do some kind of an evaluation form. Your sponsors will want to get that data from you that the evaluation form will provide. And then you can also ask people if they are interested in helping you next year with your summit, or if they want to be involved on the board or whatever, else. And then you just get such good information from your participants about their experience. Thank you, Jessica.
Terrific.
There's a question, Tammy. Who are your sponsors?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. We have had many state departments. We've had initiative foundations, the United Way. So we tend to get kind of the same sponsors every year, but just because they see the impact that their sponsorship dollars have.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hop to a warmer place. Seriously, Tammy, if you can get a lot people to come to a summit in February in Minnesota, you're doing something pretty special. Okay, let's hear from North Carolina. Ken, tell us about your Fatherhood Summit. Jay, can you unmute Ken? There you go. Start over, Ken.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate you all inviting us to participate in this conversation. We've already gathered a lot of good information that's already been shared. Our summit is called the North Carolina Fatherhood Conference, and this in June will be the 7th year that we've had the conference. We usually do it the day before Father's Day. So Father's Day is that Sunday. That Saturday we usually conduct the conference. Is usually from 8 to 3 each day, and then we do several pre-conference events also. So we started off 7 years ago with about 150 folks attending. We're anticipating about 800 for this conference. And then we do about 3 or 4 pre-conference events. We do a barbershop buzz, which was started by President Obama, and he just wanted men in barbershop to talk about issues affecting the community. So that's one of our pre-conference kickoff events. And we go into about 30 different barbershops, affecting about 400 folks who participate in that. And then we, of course, promote the conference. And that's usually occur about a month ahead of time. We also do a power breakfast where we invite fathers, other stakeholders in the community, legislators to come. And that theme of that is really about do no harm to fathers. Any legislation that you pass, anything like that, always have the fathers in mind when you do that. We also do a night before pre-conference event where we invite in fathers and their kids just to hang out. So that's another almost 300 folks that we touch around the conference. And then the day of the conference, we always have a keynote speaker that's involved. And our conference really focus is on fathers. So that might be a little bit different from what I've heard thus far, but we really cater to fathers. We think this is a time to celebrate and honor fathers. And we talk about, if you think about 100 big events in the United States, probably in the top 5 would be Mother's Day. In the last 95 probably would be Father's Day or Father's Day issue. So we try to get that up to around number 50, and we feel pretty good if we get it that place. But some of the other things that we really do focus on that have really helped us expand the conference and get it down to the grassroots is that we ask the guys who traditionally might come to a conference, might be a lot of professionals, but they have to reach back and bring 1 or 3 with them to the conference, someone who would normally not come to a conference. And that's one way we have grown our numbers, as well as we really do target specifically some different groups in the community who we know that provide services to fathers. So at any of our conferences from this point on, we start off with 400 or 50 folks pretty much already registered because they send them to the conference that way. So that's been really, really powerful for us to be in that space with them. And we do have a keynote speaker, and we've had some real big time people to come out, and we thought it was really important to bring someone who's in every day that people see. So we've had one of our local basketball coaches. We've had Common, the music mogul. We've had Roland Martin, who's come there, Dr. Steve Perry. So we got some folks from all over the country who have come in to North Carolina who wants to see what we do and take a look at what we do. But the most really important thing that we do, we really do honor and celebrate dads. We do a Trailblazer Award for someone who's doing good work in the community. So we recognize them each time. As part of the conference, we do a Father of the Year and a Dynamic Dad. So we have the young folks who in middle or high school actually write an essay why they think their dad or father figure should be Father of the Year. We have a local Giving Circle group who we vet those, and then we send it to them, and they actually pick the winner and send that back to us. So we really bringing in some other folks to participate, and we've had some really meaningful topics, and those topics are we have a planning committee, and those are driven by the folks who attend the conference and telling us, hey, here's some of the things that we'd like to see next year. And usually it's about several of the ones that we provide that year for his workshop. They ask for them to come back the following year, and then we always try to add in 2 or 3 different ones. For example, we had year for life, they asked, could we do one workshop at least on women, about women? So we did one on how women nurture themselves so they can nurture their men, for example, is one of them. So I'll stop there and take any questions or answer any questions.
Okay, thanks. Different audience, very different audience from the others that have been presented. I think, and now, Kim, let's hear about the Ohio conference.
Absolutely, Jessica. Thank you. And good afternoon to everyone again. Well, first of all, I just want to reiterate again, the fatherhood summits that we have could not go as well as they have in the past without the Practitioners Network. So I am TANF funded. And again, as many of you know, there are some restrictions on that funding. So that's why we walk alongside and partner with OPNFF, Ohio Practitioners Network, Steve's group, to pay for items that we cannot pay for. First of all, I want to say that the previous speakers did a really good job talking about some of the things that they implement. The audience that we provide services or the actual summit to are practitioners as well. However, we do expect our grantees, we do fund fatherhood programs throughout the state to provide services to low-income fathers. And so that's our summit is a time where we can ask the grantees to bring some of the fathers in so that we can honor them if any of them have met certain milestones, like maybe perfect attendance or maybe some other type of measure that the fatherhood program felt, that they should be rewarded and brought into Columbus. So it is just it's one area of the state, typically here in Columbus, because we are central, and it just makes more sense for folks to come into the middle of the state rather than someone in Cincinnati, which is southwest, to try and get up to Cleveland, which is northeast. I am required by statute to have a summit once every 4 years. And so we are on cue to have our next summit in 2020. So we will begin to have meetings. So the planning committee is myself and my staff here at the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services Commission on Fatherhood, and then the members who will be part of the summit planning committee as well from OPNFF. Also on my website, you'll see with the commission, I have 20 commissioners. So again, it's a bipartisan commission. And so we have, legislators, state senators. I think Senator Beagle spoke on the last webinar that Jay and Jessica had held for the learning community, right? And so what we did was we changed our bylaws. And so we have 3 standing committees. And one of those committees is the Summit Planning Committee. So we also have commissioners actually become a part of the planning with myself, my staff, and then whomever OPNFF will assign to sitting down to talk about the type of workshop. So we do ask for proposals. Again, with the state, we always have to ensure that we are doing things equitably and that it's a level playing field. And I'm not handpicking certain programs and folks, even though I certainly can do that, because I know, the ones that would really be good to provide certain workshops. But we do send out an email blast asking folks to submit proposals for workshops. We do give them the topics that we do want to cover. What I would recommend to states is to, if you are a nonprofit or you are a fatherhood program, or you're looking to partner with your state to maybe do this, take a look at what what the initiatives of the state are, right? So right now we have a new governor, Governor Mike DeWine, and he started right out the gate with focusing on children's initiatives. And so what we always do is we ensure that we align ourselves with with what the governor's initiatives are. I'm also going to recommend to start very early. I think it was Tammy that talked about CEUs. Make sure you get that process done. As a state worker, again, for those of you who may be partnering with child support, if they're going to pay for anything, you know, there are certain state quotas that we have to meet regarding MBEs, minority business enterprises. So in our state summits, we do have a lot of folks that help us out with the design, the decor, the audio visual, so forth and so on. The last state summit that we had in 2016, the theme was compassion, connectivity, and celebration. So you also want to sort of think about, you know, and be intentional about your theme. Just think about what, you know, what would draw folks into your summit. And it's a 2-day summit, so we actually do have a 2-day summit. We've had different plenary sessions outside of the workshops that focused on women and fatherhood work, Black and government. So we had a Republican and a Democrat state senator on a panel with some of the other directors from state departments like Rehabilitation and Corrections, the Department of Health, Department of Education, so forth and so on. So again, just ensure that you know the number of people, because we don't charge as well. This is free. I'm always very, very careful conversations with Steve, especially since they're paying for food. But we feed the breakfast. We have snacks in between. We have something called the marketplace for vendors. We have like 15 to 16 vendors. We do not charge them as well. A lot of them are state agencies that are bringing in what's new in the state. So for example, Steve mentioned the child support guidelines. Another change in the state regarding Ohio Administrative Code was on home visiting. So the Department of Health changed their home visiting rules. So we really will probably focus on offering a workshop on, you know, what are the changes in home visiting and how does it impact fathers, how some communities are hiring community health workers that are African-American males, what that model looks like and what they're doing. So I would say, again, keep an eye on what's going on in your state, what's important, you know, and just, again, starting very early. Now, I do want to show you, and Jessica, I'm going to send this to you. We do have, I don't know if you guys can see it, but the governor declares, I don't know, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so the governor declares June a Responsible Fatherhood Month in Ohio. This is the new governor. So we scanned this, and I'll go ahead and send it to you, Jessica, just so you can share it with everyone else. But again, when folks ask, why is Ohio so successful in what it is that we do when it comes to you know, fatherhood, the work, the business of fatherhood. Again, it's the partnership with OPNFF, but it's also that top support. So I come from the child support background as well, but we don't focus a lot on child support. We know it's a necessity. It is about responsible fatherhood, but there's so many other things that can get you there. And so, yeah, so I guess I just wanted to kind of point out what was important for our you know, our summit, and then for everybody to look out for the save the date. And then for Texas, I think it's Anna. Your summit was very good. I was there in Austin last year, and it was excellent, absolutely excellent. So thank you.
Terrific, thank you. Are there any questions from anybody listening that for any of these presenters about summits? What would you like to know about fatherhood summits? Okay. What have been, you've talked a little bit about pre-conference workshops. Well, let's go back to agency partners maybe a little bit, because I know in North Carolina, child support's going to be a sponsor of the North Carolina Fatherhood Conference for the first time. And maybe, Carla, if you're on the line, do you, what kind, and Kiana, I know you're on the line, what kind of benefit or what is this kind of sponsorship going to mean for the conference and for a state agency like child support in North Carolina?
If you can hear me, I'll let Kiana answer it. I do not have a good speaker.
Gosh, Carla, you're hard to hear. Can you get on Kiana's phone screen or computer?
No, we're not. I'm actually traveling today, so I'm not in North Carolina. But I will defer to Ken. I think this is child support has been a vendor in the past, so in terms of kind of having that interaction in this space, one thing that child support in North Carolina is trying to do, and I think Carla would say if she were able to speak right now, she's fairly new to the role as the chief and really trying to change the image of what child support is. So they have a new tagline in terms of wanting fathers to know, and non-custodial parents in general, that we're here to help. And so I think having that visibility in the conference space will be helpful in terms of reaching a broad array of fathers as well as practitioners will be helpful. I came to North Carolina 4 years ago, and so I've attended the conference 2 years prior, and so I think Ken can speak to this as well. They've been pretty successful at getting other state agencies to partner or act as sponsors for the conference. So the Department of Public Safety, I know, has been a pretty long-standing partner. And Ken, if you want to talk about some of the other sponsors.
I can do that. And one of the things is pretty neat about child support, traditionally that has been an adversary role, particularly with the fathers. So we think having them present and see that, the old adage, I'm here and I'm here to help. So hopefully they can view them as someone who can help and to advocate for them, or to at least tell them how to navigate the system. That's usually some of the fathers' frustration. But in addition to child support, we also get support from the Department of Public Safety, which is our juvenile court services is under. We also have the North Carolina Natural and Cultural Resources, which it looks at all of the camps and recreation and our open space and stuff like that. So teaching dads there's some things you can do with your kids that's free, and just experience the nature and that sort of thing. And then we have a wide support. Someone mentioned other things, but Wells Fargo is one of them. UPS is one of our sponsors. My agency, Methodist Home for Children, PNC Bank. We have the TV station. We have a lot of Zaxby's and Blue Cross Blue Shield and several giving circles. So we have a wide support for the conference.
Great, thank you. Anybody else on the panel want to explain a little bit about sponsors and partners, some obvious ones, some that aren't so obvious? Any advice?
Hey, Jessica.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was remiss. I did not mention the evaluation piece that you guys came in and did pre-conference in Ohio. So the last conference that we had, Jessica and her team came in and offered the evaluation training and actually provided their certificates to the members so it was more of a pre-conference training. And okay. So you guys did that for us, and it kind of kicked off the day before, and you all took from about 10 o'clock until 4, and you taught practitioners again on this data and research type of workshop. Do you remember that?
We tried to make it more palatable, and we tried to convince them it was worth the pain and suffering that evaluation often brings.
Yes, and it went very well. It went very well. And then our actual formal summit kicked off that evening. So
Right.
two things that I want to say. We are going to continue that model, but what we want to do in that time period that you all had is to invite in a curriculum author, like maybe On My Shoulders or 24/7 Dads or Nurturing Fathers, Inside Out Dads.
Right.
Right, and we're going to pay for the trainer to actually train during that time on a particular curriculum, because part of my charge at the Commission on Fatherhood is to train practitioners. We do that at the summit, but I want to be a little bit more intentional on getting folks certified in evidence-based fatherhood curricula. And then also, and Steve, hopefully I'm not stealing your thunder, but this is also a time for the OPNFF members that evening. They have a celebration as well. So not only are we celebrating our practitioners, the Ohio Commission on Fatherhood, but OPNFF is also taking the time to provide awards and recognize folks that's part of their membership as well. So that 2 days, we get a lot done.
You pack it in. Any other thoughts about summits? We had a little bit of side conversation going on in the chat about the size of these summits and conferences. What do they range from? What can you expect in your first year? Do they grow over time? Anybody want to offer? We've heard, gosh, Ken, you were talking about, you mentioned 800 attendees. What about in, Anna, what's the size of the Texas Summit, and how does the one national compare to the size of the regionals that I know you just started, but how do they compare in size?
So I mentioned in the chat box, our statewide summit has grown over the years, with about 200 people attending the first year and nearly 400 last year. And I do think that that's largely through word of mouth, and people telling people about their experience in the summit and recommending they participate. I think in terms of, I would just say that I think that getting the right people to your summit is perhaps more important than the quantity of the people who attend. And that's something that we've been really thoughtful about in terms of how we reach out to people, even within an organization. Who are the people that we really want there to have those important conversations? What types of roles? And that's, I think, even more important at the regional level, where our summits will be a bit smaller, more like 100 to 125 people participating. But having the right people there is critical to having the conversations. And that's where we've worked with sort of all of the regional partners to make sure that we reach out and invite the right people and help them understand the goals of the summit and the value that the summit can have, both for their organization, but also for the work that they're doing in their community.
So talk a little bit more about who are the right people. I mean, what kinds of roles are you looking for?
Yeah, so I think we want people who are working directly with families, as well as people who are in leadership roles, people who have control of funding, people who are appointed to the boards that are doing the important thinking about things, policymakers, so whether that is at the county level or the city level, people who are part of the decision-making process. It's about the diversity and having all of the people in all of those different types of roles, so that they can both bring their perspectives but also their resources to the table to figure out how they're going to move forward.
So do you are you a little bit more aggressive if they haven't, if they're not enrolling by word of mouth, that you're reaching out with invitations? And
Yeah, we do pretty actively track who's RSVP'd and then send targeted communications to people. And we keep an eye on sort of what types of organizations and what types of roles have responded in the lead up to the summit to try to make sure that we're contacting. You know, we obviously can't force people to attend, but we do a lot of follow up to try to encourage people to attend.
Right, right.
Jessica, this is Tammy Dunrud from Minnesota. And I just wanted to say a bit about after the summit happens, kind of post-summit, which is also important. We try to do follow-up. We do an online email newsletter monthly, and we do follow-up information from the summit to kind of keep that engagement and excitement of the summit going. I think a lot of times we do this good work and then it just kind of goes away. So I think the thing that we try to do too is to keep people involved. For example, in our newsletter, we highlight a different partner every month, someone that was involved with the summit and a little bit more about what they do. So in case people weren't at the summit, they'd like to come next year, they can see the kind of things that the MFFN work does throughout the year.
Okay.
If I can add that one of the reason why we target the fathers particular, because we want them to be their self-advocate. And that if we get their skills, that way they'll know how to advocate for themselves. So a lot of our conference time is spent about honoring and celebrating fathers, but also telling them that why it's important for them to stay present in the lives of their kids and what that brings and how to advocate for themselves and for their kids. So we really try to equip the fathers to be the advocate for themselves, for their kids, and for what they need to have to go on in their community.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Any from anybody who's from other states and folks from other states about any wisdom from these folks, these experienced conference and practitioner network folks? I noticed there was an internal chat question about using sponsorships, obtaining sponsorships in addition to FRPN funds. Of course, we encourage you to try to augment the resources, the very small kind of seed. We see these mini grants from FRPN as kind of sparks to help stimulate some planning and activity in states. Certainly they're not 100% of what you will need to initiate and sustain father engagement initiatives. So please do use our resources to generate additional ones from other sources. Jay, is there anything more to?
Yeah, Jessica, there's a question to Clarence. How do you work with child support logistically? Do you meet regularly? Is the partnership organized?
Yeah, we do meet with the child support on a regular basis, very much informally. We have times where we are interfacing with them about various issues, but and it fluctuates between again on the issues. We also have them on our board, so we have the opportunity to interface with them and to hear what their concerns are. And we're very excited about the grant that we have, because it's going to give us much more of an opportunity to really figure out how we're going to work more closely with them. Because I really believe that they are, at least for us, the leadership is very interested in making sure that fathers are positively engaged in the lives of their children.
Good. Child support is really, when you look nationally, there are 17 million open child support cases. So like it or not, child support agencies have good, bad, or ugly. They have relationships with 17 million fathers for the most part. Some of non-custodial parents are mothers, but mostly they're fathers. And so they are key partner. They should be a key partner. And many child support agencies are trying to improve their relationships with fathers so that they, they're more successful in core missions of generating orders and collections. So work with them, and that's why all of these mini grants had required participation of state child support directors, and it should be happening at county and local levels as well. And Kimberly is nodding. Yes?
And I just wanted to state for those of you who are bringing in leadership to your summits or to your conferences, identify a father, a success story, because I'm going to tell you that's what a lot of my leaders like to hear. We are very, of course, interested in the data, but they very rarely get an opportunity to hear how your programming or your engagement is really helping a father and his family. So if you can find fathers to bring in to just kind of talk about, where they were and where they are today, that's very impactful.
Okay. Well, that's a good place to end. Thanks to the panelists for terrific contributions, and we hope we've sparked some interest and capacity in everybody who's been listening. And we'll see you in future FRPN sponsored gatherings. So, Jay, thank you very much for hosting this. And to everybody, have a good day and happy May Day. Almost May Day.
Almost.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for hosting. So long.
Take care. Thanks, Steve, Clarence, Tammy, everyone.